So, the moment we've been all waiting for, the famous scaling blueprint, aka the $1 million scale. Now, after you basically went over, I hope at least that you went over, because if you haven't, you should go back and go over it. I'm not talking about the full program, but at least this module, the scaling module. Make sure that you go over it before you jump into this. You'll just understand it better, and you won't be as confused, okay? But basically, what is the scaling blueprint, okay? Let me just give an intro, because this is huge. This is not like any other lesson. This is a lesson that will literally change the way you do Facebook ads for the better. Now, the scaling blueprint was built over a lot of money that was spent in advertising over a period of at least 1 year of basically testing a lot of different things, going with dozens of different students, dozens of different businesses, until we basically built this universal, actually this is a universal scaling system. So it doesn't matter if you're doing e-commerce, and it doesn't matter if you're doing lead generation or whatever, this will work for every type of business. That's why I'm so excited to basically reveal it to you finally. Okay, now it's important that when you actually do your scale, when you're going with it, then you probably want to watch this video again. Doing as I say, as you basically do the scale, right? So it probably won't remember everything, but after you do it a few times, it will be like a second nature to you. And basically all our scalings and all these success stories are, not all of them, but a lot of them are built out of this blueprint, okay? So let's just jump right into it, shall we? Okay, so if you don't know yet, you always start with a test ad. Okay, a test ad, which is an auto bid ad, which targets mobile and desktop on a $10 to $20 budget. Which objective? Again, you ask yourself, are you making $20? Are you making 20 conversions a day on a specific objective? Right? You send that ad. This is the ad that we always use for whatever we want to basically achieve, to test out. Now, we send this out either to our lookalike audience, if we have one. Okay, if we don't, then our audience that we usually target to, okay? So we send out this ad. So again, $10 to $20 budget, sometimes $30, but 10 to 20 usually. And we send it out on purchase and add to cart, okay, or lead, depending on what we optimize for, on automatic bid, on mobile and desktop. Now, we'll usually send it on mobile, on add to cart and purchase running together, okay, if we have the budget. Okay, we have the budget. Now the question is if you have the budget, because we want to see what works better for this specific product. So we'll usually send out a purchase and an add to cart alongside each other just to see what works better, okay? So this is the first initial ad. This is the first ad that we always do when we try a new product or try a new offer. Anything, we always start with this ad, okay? Test ad, 10 to 20 budget ad, auto bid, mobile plus desktop combined, nothing too fancy. Okay, if we have a lookalike audience, we'll send this out to the lookalike audience, okay? Now, as we talked about before, we give it a minimum of a 3-day test. Okay, a minimum of a 3-day test, that's the first thing that we do. Okay, I talked about what to look at an ad, what to not look at, how to know if you should close an ad or not. If you haven't checked that out, you should. It's called the how long to let an ad run. So we let it run for a minimum of 3 days. Is it profitable? Great. We wait for 20 sales, okay? Because we want to see that it's still consistent. Okay, we want to see that it's still consistent. It's not enough that it's been running for like 3-4 days and it's made $5 in profit in total. We want to see consistent sales. So we'll want to wait for 20 sales. Now, once we get to 20 sales, we ask ourselves, are we profitable, still profitable after these 20 sales? Because, sometimes you can get 4 sales in the first 2 days and you're extremely profitable, and then a week later, it's suddenly you're not profitable anymore. Even though you made more sales, but just like there was more ad spend. So we ask ourselves, are we still profitable after the 20 sales of this ad? If we are, this is what we're going to do. We're going to break down the ad placement, okay, of this ad. Okay, we're going to go to the right here, columns, and then we're going to pick the placement. And what that's going to tell us is it's going to tell us basically how much traffic the mobile got and how much traffic the desktop got. Okay, like as you know, the reach is going to be pretty undivided, maybe 70%, 30%, maybe 80%, 20%. Very rarely it's 50-50. So what we're looking for is not the reach. We don't care about the reach. What we care about is what has a lower goal CPA. Okay, a goal CPA is not precisely the objective that you optimize for. The goal CPA is the end objective that you want to get from the ad. So if you're doing e-commerce or like selling products, then you eventually want to get a purchase. Even though you're optimizing for add to cart, you want to get purchases eventually, right? So that's a goal CPA, okay? Even if you're optimizing for add to cart, your goal CPA is purchase, okay? If you're optimizing for purchase, your goal CPA is still purchase because that's the end goal that you want to get. So again, I ask myself, I break it down to mobile and desktop, and I look at the ads, and I look which one has a lower goal CPA, okay? Which one has cheaper purchases? That's it. That's basically what I'm saying. If you're doing leads, then what has cheaper leads? The mobile or the desktop? Where am I getting better leads? Okay, better conversions at a cheaper price. Does it have at least 10 conversions? Okay, so I want to know if that has at least 10 conversions, purchases, right? If it does, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to duplicate to the placement with a lower goal CPA. Okay, so let's say the mobile is the one that had cheaper cost per action, cheaper purchases. I'm going to duplicate that to mobile. I'm going to duplicate this ad set, right? This test ad, I'm going to duplicate it only to mobile. And I'm going to set a manual bid. And I'm going to set a budget that is the minimum. The minimum of the budget is going to be the optimized CPA times 100. Okay, that's the minimum budget that I'm going to give the ad. Now, what is the minimum optimized CPA? The optimized CPA is the action that you're optimizing for, which can be either purchase or add to cart or whatever you are optimizing for. It's not the goal CPA. Okay, it might be the goal CPA if you're optimizing for purchase, but the optimized CPA is what you're optimizing for. So what is the objective of this ad? Is the ad objective add to cart? Then the budget needs to be a minimum of the cost per action of the add to cart times 100. The cost per action of how much you're paying on the test ad. So how much, you ask yourself, look at the ad and look, what's your cost per action? What's your cost per add to cart? So if your cost per add to cart is $4, then the minimum budget will be $400 because that's times 100. If you're optimizing for purchases, then the minimum, and you're paying $10 per purchase, the minimum budget will be $1,000 because 10 times 100 is 1,000. So that's the optimized CPA. I usually don't start any manual bidding campaigns underneath $1,000. Even if it's not times 100, I always start a minimum of $1,000. But I know some people are scared to do that, even though you shouldn't be if you control your bid. But just to let you know, like even with $1,000, it's most of the time you don't really need to put $1,000 because Facebook won't spend even half of that. But just in case, I always like to put a high budget so I don't need to touch it. So I'm not dealing with it. That's the purpose of manual bidding, that you don't deal with the budget. So I'll look at my optimized CPA and I'll multiply that by 100. So if I'm optimizing for add to cart and I'm paying $3 per add to cart on my test ad, I will multiply that by 100. That's going to be the minimum of the budget on this new ad. Okay, so for example, you see here this is an ad that's running on desktop and mobile, right? So you can see that the cost per lead on mobile is 90 cents, while the cost per lead on desktop is $1.34. So mobile is giving me better CPA. I'll duplicate this ad only to mobile with a budget of minimum $90, although I like to put $1,000 anyway, because 90 cents times 100 is $90, right? So that's basically what I mean. This is the cost per lead, the 90 cents. The mobile is giving me the cheaper leads. I will duplicate to mobile on a high budget. Okay, manual bid. Now, in a second we're going to get to the bid, but this is how it should look like now. So you duplicated the test ad to one of them, right? To either mobile or to desktop, depending on where you had cheaper cost per actions. So you'll have the test ad running, and then you'll have one of these ads running alongside it, right? So what bid do you put on the ad? So you have basically two choices. Okay, you have the bottom to top which you go from a low bid and increase it slowly. This is a lot slower and less risky. Okay, I don't recommend it because the optimization doesn't really work as good, we've noticed, but you have this option, okay? The second one is from top to bottom, which is faster. The ad starts working good faster, and it's a bit more risky because you're bidding high and going slowly down, which means you're spending a lot of money until it optimizes. And by a lot, it can go up to like $50, $100, $200 depending on the budget and depending on what you're optimizing for, which this is what we always do, top to bottom, okay? So I'll explain each one of them now more thoroughly. And always max bid. Okay, you have average bid, you have max bid, right? You always pick max bid, okay? Now, bottom to top is basically taking the CPA of the test ad, okay, the optimized CPA, dividing it by 2. That's your bid. Okay, so if you're optimizing for add to cart, and your add to cart, we said that it's $3, right? Cost per add to cart, we're gonna take that $3 and we're gonna divide it by 2, so that's $1.50. That's your bid. Okay, that's the bid that you're gonna put on the new ad. And now you let it run for a few hours. Is it spending any money? If yes, keep running while keeping an eye on it. If it's not running, increase the bid by 0.5 to $1 every hour until it starts spending. Okay, put an alarm to check every hour. You have to basically be on this, so it doesn't overspend, and you get to a spot where you're actually making good money. So usually what happens with the bottom to top is that you put a very low bid and it doesn't spend. That's usually what happens. That Facebook just doesn't spend any money. It doesn't send any traffic. You'll notice that the ad isn't getting any reach. Now, if that's the case, you just increase it a little bit. Okay, you increase it by $0.50 to $1 every hour. Okay, I recommend $0.50. So you increase that. It depends on really like if you're usually like the more expensive CPAs, then you can take bigger steps, like $1 every hour. But the more cheaper CPAs, like $3 to $10, then increasing by $0.50 is probably more efficient. So you have the $1.50 bid, right? And you have the optimized for add to cart. So let's say you let it run for a few hours. It didn't spend anything. The ad didn't get any reach. You're gonna increase the bid from $1.50 to $2, and you're gonna let it run for another hour. Did it start spending? If not, you increase it by another $0.50. You wait an hour. Did it start spending? If not, you keep doing that until it starts spending. Okay, put an alarm clock every hour to basically remind you to check the ad. Okay. Now, once it starts spending, let it run, looking at the cost per action. Now, usually you'll need to continue to increase the bid to reach a sweet spot where Facebook spends enough with satisfying CPAs. So, what do I mean by that? Now, let's say you're running this ad set and you started at $1.50 bid and it's not spending, so you're increasing it by $0.50 every hour. And then let's say you're reaching you reached $5 and that's when it starts spending. Now, once it starts spending, you let it run for a few hours, looking at it and making sure that it's okay. Usually it should be okay because you increase it very slowly from bottom to top. So it's not gonna all of a sudden just spend $1,000. It's gonna spend very little, very slowly. That's why even when it starts spending, you're gonna probably want to increase the bid a little bit more. How do you know though? Once it starts spending, you let it run for anywhere between 12 to 24 hours and you see how much it's spent in total and how much you're paying per action. Now, usually when it starts spending, it will barely spend over the day because that's like the minimum bid that is working. If you increase the bid, it will start spending more, meaning getting you more conversions. That's why you want to keep increasing it until you get to a point where the ad set is spending enough, getting enough reach, but still your cost per action is good. Okay, so again, I'm going to repeat that. You start low, you increase slowly by $0.50 every hour until it starts spending. Once it starts spending, you leave it as it is. You let it run for a few hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, and then you look at how much it spent in total. It will basically usually not spend a lot. If you had like a $500 budget, it might spend only like $30 or $50 most of the time. And in that case, you'll want it to spend more because usually when you bid on the lowest bid that's giving you traffic, it won't really work as good. That's why you want to keep increasing it until it's spending, until you're happy with your cost per action, Okay, your goal cost per action, of course, and it's spending enough. So you might be running it and then it spends like $50 a day, and the cost per action is $5, $4, which is, let's say it's really cheap. It should be because you're bidding very, very low, but you don't mind, but you want to make Facebook spend more, right? You don't want Facebook to only spend $50. You want it to spend hundreds. So you increase the bid, and then all of a sudden it goes from $50 spend to $80 spend, and then your CPA increases by a bit. So it'll increase from $5 to $5.3, let's say, and then you keep increasing the bid, and then Facebook spends more, and then the CPAs increase with it. Now the CPAs will increase very, very slowly. That's the thing, which I'd rather my CPA be like $6 and Facebook will spend $400 a day than my CPA being $5 and Facebook only spends $50 a day. Okay, if you know what I mean. Now, this way, it's a lot more easier. With top to bottom, it's a lot more easier. And it's faster and it's optimized much more quicker. I really recommend it this way because it's not that risky, because you'll probably lose $50, $100, maybe a bit more, but it's worth it because once it's optimized, it makes you a ton of money. So how do you go from top to bottom? You take the CPA of the test ad, okay, like we took the CPA of the test ad in the bottom to top and divided it by 2. This time we're not going to divide it by 2, we're going to add 25% to it. Okay, so our add to cart was $3, right, per action. So how much is 25% out of $3? It's $3.75. Okay, so usually the smaller the bids, the more we're gonna add percentage to it. So on a $3 add to cart, we might add like 100% and not 25%. We'll go to $6 instead of like $3.75. And the bigger the CPA, the smaller the percentage that we add. But it doesn't really matter because anyway, this is only the beginning, and then from there you basically move around. So let's say we go with the $3, and with $3 we'll add a bit more. We'll not add 25%, we'll add probably like 50 to 100%. So let's say we put the bid on $5, okay? And then we wait till it spends. If it doesn't spend at all, then just double it. Okay, just like double the bid, because it should spend. That's the whole purpose of top to bottom. It should spend the moment you assign the bid. If it doesn't spend, then just double the bid. But usually it will spend because you're starting with a high bid, and you want to wait till it spends like $100 to $200. Okay, you want to wait. You want to give it like to spend even $100, and you want to look at the CPA. Now, usually the CPA will be pretty bad because it's still optimizing. It's still like getting traction. But if the CPA is around your goal after like $100, $200, then what I mean by goal is the CPA like not? I don't want you to like lose a ton of money. So if your CPA is really, 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 really bad, then we'll start decreasing the bid. But we'll get to that in a second. If the CPA is around your goal, which means it's not great, but it's okay, or like at least not losing you a lot of money, then let it run for a bit more and see what happens, because it takes time sometimes for it to optimize and start getting you the better goals. Now, if the CPA is too high, decrease bid slowly. Okay, let it run for a few hours and look at hourly costs. Now, this is very important because the thing about manual bidding is that you want to see the differences that happen on an hourly basis. So you can go to the breakdown and check the time of day, the ad account time zone, and you can basically look at the changes and the cost per action depending on the hour. So you can change the bid, right? You know how I tell you to check it every hour. So you can actually look at the difference between the hours, which is really good. You don't have to wait a full 24 hours to see the change. If you go to breakdown, you can check on an hourly basis what's going on. So in a nutshell, you have to work with your bid here. These are just the rules. This is how it works. If the cost per action is too high, you decrease the bid. Because if the cost per action is too high, it means that the ad is spending too much money. The only way to make the ad spend less money is to decrease the bid. Okay? This way the ad will spend less money and your CPA will go down. Now, if the CPA is too low or the ad is not spending enough, then you increase the bid. Okay? These are the rules to go by. Keep a lookout on your bid and change accordingly. So, every 24 hours, every 48 hours, look over it, see what's going on, increase, decrease accordingly. Okay, so again, these are the two rules. Is the CPA too high? Okay, decrease the bid. Is the CPA too low? Increase the bid. I'm not talking about decreasing by a ton. Like you decrease very, very slowly, because if you're bidding on $10 and suddenly it's suddenly too high, and you've already been like running it for a while, and then suddenly it starts to be pretty high, you just decrease it a little bit. You decrease it by $1. You see what happens. You don't suddenly decrease it by like half. So if the CPA is too low, or the ad is not spending or not spending enough, you increase the bid. Decreasing the bid makes the ad spend less, which means the CPA will be lower. Okay? Increasing the bid will make the ad spend more, which means your CPA will be higher, which is not a bad thing. Okay? Higher CPA sometimes is a good thing if the ad is not spending enough. And that's not always the case. You can, if your bid is really, 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 really low, like really low, and it's like literally spending like $10, $20, $30 budget, and suddenly you see that the CPA is a lot more than the bid, it's because you're not giving enough room for Facebook to work. That's why I really recommend to start from top to bottom. Okay, so these are the rules to go by. CPA too high, you decrease the bid. CPA too low, you increase the bid. Okay. Now don't freak out over one day. Always look at the average of the last 4 days. Okay, if one day the ad is suddenly like not working good, don't freak out and start changing things. Always look at the average of the last 4 days. If for 4 days it's been bad, then you can start working with the bid. If it's been 1 day, then don't freak out. Let it run. Now after finding the sweet spot, okay, you'll eventually find a sweet spot. You'll find a bid that's working pretty good. Okay, that's you're actually the ad is spending enough money, and the CPA is pretty nice. So what you want to do is you want to duplicate it to the other placement. Okay, and then you run the same process. So duplicating to the other placement, right? It will be basically let me show you that slide at the beginning. So here, so you duplicate it to mobile, and then you duplicate that to. So you remember we sent out the mobile, right? And that worked. And we got to a sweet spot. We're going to duplicate that to only desktop. Same ad, same exact thing. And we're going to go through the same exact process that we just went through. Okay. Now after some time, okay, that these two ads are running and you found the sweet spots on both of them, you want to break down the ad sets again and find the neglected genders and ages. Okay, so you break down the ad and you go to ages, gender and ages. Okay. So you want to look for what has less than 20% reach and duplicate an ad to there. So in this case, we have, let's see what we have here. So we have a lot of neglected areas here, if you can see. So for example, the reach here on females is really, really bad. We barely reach females, right? You see most of the reach here are males. Okay, I'm talking about all the ages. So all the females from ages 18 to 35 aren't getting my niche list, aren't even getting any reach. That's because Facebook automatically optimized on males because that's what it saw that gets me most conversions, which is okay, I like that, but it doesn't mean that females won't give me good conversions as well. As you can see here on the right, the link clicks on females isn't that bad. Okay, it's like, it's still a bit more than males, but it's still pretty good. So what I'll do is I'll basically find them on both of these ads, right? And then I'll duplicate it to those ads. So one on mobile and one on desktop. So I'll look over the mobile ad, the breakdown, and let's say this is the mobile ad, okay? And I can see, wow, females are getting less than 20% of the reach. I'm gonna duplicate this ad and only target the neglected audience, which in this case it's females from ages 18 to 54. So I'm gonna duplicate that ad and run it to females 18 to 54. Okay, then I'm gonna look at the desktop ad. I'm gonna break that down and see what's neglected, and then I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna look at what has less than 20%, and I'm basically gonna do the same thing. Okay. And basically run the same process. You do the same exact thing that we just did. Okay. Manual bid, and you basically work with that. Okay. Same thing. So what's left is to keep an eye out for the bids. If CPAs have been bad for a few days, either increase or decrease. Okay. Again, increase meaning you will spend more on the ad and the CPAs will go up. Decrease meaning the ad spend will be lower, but your cost per action will be lower with it as well. Okay, these are the two rules to stick by. Increasing the bid will increase the CPA, will increase the ad spend. Decreasing the bid will decrease the ad spend, will lower the CPA. Now it's time to move to the lookalike audiences. Okay, if you haven't already, because all our initial ads are targeted on lookalike audiences, we don't deal with interests anymore unless we go into a new business, into a new niche, but mostly it's only lookalike audiences. So if you didn't approach the lookalike audiences yet, then this is the time. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to create a lookalike audience from the view content, the add to cart, the purchase, or the lead, and you make sure to build a lookalike audience from similar data, same niche or even from the product data. We went over this. A lookalike audience that's mixed up with a lot of different businesses, a lot of different data, a lot of different niches won't work good. You want to create a lookalike audience from very similar pixel data. Okay, either the same niche or even the same product. Okay, if all the products are underneath the same niche, then just create it from the niche. But if your products are scattered, if your niche is scattered, then just create the lookalike audience from the product data. By product data or by niche data, I mean like the purchases from that product or the adds to cart from that product or the view content for that product. So what you'll do is you'll create a view content, an add to cart, and a purchase. Okay, 3 lookalike audiences. Okay, and you're basically going to send out an ad to each one of them. Now, of course, if you're doing e-com, you won't have lead, so it's only going to be view content, add to cart, and purchase. And if you're doing leads, you're not going to have any of these other than lead. So if you're doing e-com, you're going to send out an ad to view content, add to cart. What did I say? You're going to send out, yeah. I'm getting blacked out here. So you're going to send out an ad to view content, add to cart, and purchase, the same exact test ad that we did at the beginning. Okay, 1 to there, 1 to there, 1 to there. Lead ads, you won't do that if you're doing e-com because you don't have any leads, right? You're not going to build a lookalike audience from leads. You're just going to create a lookalike audiences from the view content, add to cart, and purchase. Then you're going to send this ad to all of these lookalike audiences. Now, what I recommend is to send a purchase and an add to cart to each one of them. If you don't have the budget, just pick the one that works better for you in this whole scenario. What worked better in general, the add to cart or the purchase. So yeah, best to test, like I said, best is to test all conversion objectives to see what works best. By the way, something I forgot to mention, I got reminded. So at the test ad, I said to try purchase and to try add to cart, right? What you're gonna do is you're going to only scale one of them. Okay, only scale one of them that's working better. Don't scale both of them because they're gonna overlap the hell out of each other. Okay, you don't want to do that. So it doesn't matter if both of them are profitable. Just scale one of them. So if you send out a purchase and an add to cart as a test ad, and they're both profitable, but the add to cart is making more money, then just scale the add to cart and close the purchase. Okay, so I just wanted to get that out of the way. The reason is because they're very similar in their optimization, so they will interfere with each other. So best is to test out all conversion objectives to see what works best. Okay. Now it's really important that you make sure that you exclude correctly, because we want to, the lookalike audience, all these lookalike audiences have very similar people. Don't forget that. They're built out of similar data, which means that the people in these audiences are overlapping each other, some of them. The rule is that you don't want to hit the same person with 2 ads. Okay. How do we do that? So this is basically the equation that you do when you target these ads. So when you're targeting the lookalike purchase, first of all, when you're targeting any of these lookalikes, you're always going to exclude the initial audience, the audience that you started with, the first one, right? We scaled already on the first ad. I don't know what you targeted. You targeted either a lookalike audience already, or you targeted like an interest or a few interests. So it's important to basically, from all of these new ads, you're going to exclude that. Okay, you're going to exclude everything that you're targeting already. Then on one of these, basically this can be mixed and mixed. Like it can be like you can instead of the lookalike purchase, you can do lookalike add to cart, or instead of the add to cart, you can do lookalike view content and exclude like each other. But basically, I'm not going to complicate things for you. I'm just going to explain it to you very, 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 very simple. So forget what I just said, just listen to what I'm saying and you'll get it right. So when you're targeting the lookalike purchase, you're going to exclude the initial audience, only the initial audience. Remember, all of these ad sets are excluding the initial audience. So the lookalike purchase will only exclude the initial audience. The lookalike add to cart will exclude the initial audience and the lookalike purchase 1%. And the lookalike view content will exclude the initial audience, the lookalike purchase 1%, and the lookalike add to cart 1%. It should look something like this. You see how the lookalike purchase is basically on top, and it's basically you target the whole lookalike purchase. The lookalike add to cart, you see how like the lookalike purchase is on top of the add to cart, because the lookalike add to cart does not touch the lookalike purchase. And the lookalike view content is basically you're excluding the lookalike purchase and the lookalike add to cart from that audience. Okay, I hope that makes sense. It doesn't have to really make sense if you just listen to what I say, and it should work. But this is basically the algorithm to target all of these three lookalike audiences without them overlapping on each other at all. Okay. Now, whatever works, okay, because you're gonna send some ads here to the lookalike audiences, whatever works, you're just gonna do the same exact process. Okay, exactly the same thing. You're gonna send out you're gonna scale to the manual bid of what works better, the mobile and desktop, which one has the lower goal CPA. You'll send out the ad to there. You're gonna let that run. You're gonna play with the bid. Once it starts working, once you reach a sweet spot, you'll duplicate that to the other placement. And then you're gonna look at the neglected audiences and you're gonna send out the ad to them again. And it's basically the same process, but now you're doing it on the lookalike audiences that work, okay? Afterwards, you start building bigger lookalike audience, right? 2%, or the next step is to build a 2%, right? You remember what I showed you in the last video on how to basically do that correctly, the 1 to 2%, and then you do the same exact excluding process, okay? You only do this to lookalike audiences that worked, by the way. So if the lookalike audience add to cart was shit and it didn't work, there's no reason to now build a lookalike audience 2% add to cart, because it will probably not work. You just continue to scale the lookalike audiences that worked. So if the view content and purchase worked good, you'll build a lookalike audience view content 2% and a lookalike audience purchased. Okay, you'll do the same exclusion that I just showed you. Okay, excluding one from the other. And you're gonna do the same thing again. Okay, and you keep building bigger lookalike audiences until it doesn't work anymore. So it really depends on how broad your product is, how broad your niche is. The broader the niche, the longer you can basically run the scale. So you can go sometimes up all the way to 10% lookalike audiences, but sometimes you'll stop at 2%, 3% if your product is pretty targeted. Okay. Don't forget other countries, by the way. Okay, other countries is basically you do the same thing. You send out test ads to other countries. If it works, you just scale the same way you just scale to other countries. When ads start to decline, as you know, every ad has a lifespan. When you start to see that the ad is starting to, like, the CPA start to rise, well, what's going to happen with the manual bid? Okay, let me fix that. Let me correct what I just said. What happens with manual campaigns is that the CPA will usually not rise too much. What will happen is that the ad spend will start to decrease because you're bidding on a certain CPA. So at automatic bid, you'll notice that the CPAs start to increase, right? Because you're still spending the same amount of money. But on manual bids, that's not going to happen. What's going to happen is that the ad is going to start spending less and less and less and less. So what you do at this case is you raise the bid until, but you want to make sure that when you raise the bid that you're still profitable. So what happens usually when ad declines is you start to notice that the ad is spending less and less money because it's finding harder and harder to find conversions on the bid that you give it. So you help it by increasing the bid a bit. You're going to lose some money because that means that it has to find more expensive CPAs. So you keep doing that until it's not profitable for you anymore. And then you just shut it down. Okay? The more you experiment with this, the more fluent and natural it will get. Okay, so if you need to go over this again, go over this again. Again, how does this work? You keep budgets high and you play with the bids. That's the process. You keep budgets high and you play with the bids. That's the rule. Golden rule, budgets high, playing with the bids, okay? CPA too low, not spending enough, what do? You increase the bid. CPA too high, ad spending too much, what do? You decrease the bid. Because what will happen every time the bid, eventually it's responsible for how much the ad will spend. The higher the bid, the more the ad will spend. The lower the bid, the less the ad will spend. Okay, that's basically it. That's really it with the scaling. That really is the whole process of how to scale most efficiently. And this is what has been working for us now. A note is that this won't work with very small audiences. With very, very targeted audiences, you won't really reach big heights because you need a lot of room and you need a lot of people to scale. You need like a minimum of, I'd say, like 1 million to really scale efficiently. The bigger the audience is, the bigger like your niche, the more broader it is, the bigger you can go because the more people you'll be able to scale to, because more people are interested probably in the product if it's more broad. But that's basically it. What's amazing about this is that the risk here is really not that big because when you're playing with the bids, you're always in control of your budget. Okay, you won't just all of a sudden spend $1,000 budget, because if you keep a low bid, the ad set will limit itself. It won't spend the whole budget. That's the whole purpose of the manual bid. Anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to leave it in the group and I'll get to that, because you might have some questions or things that maybe aren't clear or I didn't explain it clear enough. I believe I did, but again, you can never know. That's basically it with this, with the scaling blueprint. Let me know how it works for you. Leave any testimonials or any problems. I'll be happy to help, and I'll see you in the next video.